Yesterday, we got introduced to a brand new storyline that we're going to be following inside Black Ops 4. Now, the thing is, then this is kind of confusing because we are getting this new storyline, but we also are getting Blood of the Dead that follows the old storyline, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out, but I do have a couple ideas, and I'll probably make a video on that in the next couple days, or even maybe today. I'm not exactly sure, but regardless, that's not the point of the video. This point of the video is that we're going to be just trying to explain everything we can for this storyline. I'm going to go over the characters, just going to be going over what we saw in the trailer and all that good stuff, but keep in mind all the information we have for this mode all came from these two trailers and a couple things that Jason Blundell said, but besides that, we don't have that much. So I'm going to just be breaking down everything we got inside these two trailers, so I'm putting them both into one video, both 9 and the Voyage of Despair. I'll talk about Voyage of Despair first, but before we even talk about that one, I want to talk about the characters, because the names of our characters were actually revealed to us by Jason Blundell, and I'm not exactly sure I got all of them, especially for the female character. The thing is, when he was saying her name, he was kind of cut off, but I think I could figure out what he's saying, but I may be mistaken on this one. And the first one I want to talk about is what I think is Scarlet, and of course this is our female character inside the mode. And she seems to be the American of the group, and the reason why I say American is because I think they're going for the same thing they went for forever. Actually, they all have this one stereotype to them, and she seems to be that American, just, well, not the stereotype, but you know, just that they're from this different nationality, because we do see that with her, and there's nobody really else that could be the American. And then after that you have Bruno, which we know is French, because a different character that I'll talk about in a little bit said that he was French. So we know this guy's French. Also, he has a French accent. And the next one we have is Diego, and this guy I'm pretty sure is Spanish. He sounds Spanish, he kind of looks Spanish, and I mean, he just seems like a Spanish character, so I mean, that seems like I'm pretty confident he's Spanish. That's all I gotta say, because he seems like a Spanish guy. And then after that we have our last guy, the old guy called Shaw. And the thing is, I can't really pinpoint exactly what his nationality is, because the other ones were a little bit easier, but he is a little weird. But from what I heard people saying, they were saying that the name Shaw is actually a British name, which I've never really heard of, so take this with a ton of salt, because I just don't know if that's actually British or not. I don't hear the British accent or anything. He kind of, maybe you can say a British accent, but I'm not exactly sure. But Shaw is the last character that we have. Now, a couple other things before we actually get into the trailers themselves. I want to actually talk about things that we just know about just the mode as a whole, mainly the characters. But one thing is that this crew of Scarlet, Bruno, Diego, and Shaw seem to have known each other for at least some time before these maps take place, because they're talking to each other, working together, just pretty much just working together like someone who would know somebody in the past, and just, you know, someone they're used to or something like that. Now, this doesn't mean they're friends or anything like that. It just could be that they fell into the same, pretty much like the Origins characters. It may be just like that they only worked together because that was their best possible way of surviving or something like that. It could be a lot of different things, but at least we do know that this is probably not the first time they're meeting each other, so that's something to note right away. Now, as for how much their goals align, I'm not too sure, because we did hear that Scarlet and Shaw seem that they're pretty dead set on getting these artifacts out of the hands of this certain cult, I guess we'll call it for now. But Diego, I'm not sure, but Bruno seemed a little bit strange, because when they asked him what about the other valuables, like he wanted to steal them, they were saying, no, we're not thieves, we're just going to do this. So I don't know, it's maybe nothing, but it's something I thought was worth pointing out. Another thing I want to talk about is these two characters that we have a little bit more information on, because Bruno and Diego we don't know too much, but as for Shaw and Scarlet we know a little bit more. And we'll first start off with Shaw. So Shaw seems to be the one in charge of these whole operations that they're running, especially when you hear them talking about how they're going to go on the Titanic and do all these different things. And he seems like he's just the one, at least in the charge of the plans. I don't know if he's in charge of the group, he's not, I don't know if he's going to be like Richtofen or something like that, but at the very least he's in charge of the plans and the execution of it, because he's talking about timing is everything and all that good stuff. Another thing to know about him is that he uses these chemicals that may be alchemy. We're not entirely sure. They're probably alchemy. I mean, they kind of do things not, I guess normal chemicals could also do, but I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Now as for Scarlet, she's a little bit more interesting because we do know that she has some sort of, I guess she seems like a smarter person because she says that she invented that thing that she used to crack the lock just to open it, and she says she invented herself and all that good stuff. So she seems to be a little bit more intelligent than Bruno or Diego, but I'm not too sure about Shaw. I mean, he's older, so I mean that gives him a really big edge, but we're not sure. But she seems pretty smart herself. But on top of that, we know that her father seems to be someone of importance. We're not exactly sure in which way, but we do know that he may have been messing around with Shaw because Shaw also knows her father. So we're not exactly sure how important he is or what exactly he did in the past. Hopefully we'll find out when we actually get the maps in 5 months' time, but I think it's something worth mentioning right now. But let's actually jump into the trailers and not just the characters. And I'm just going to skip to the part that's important, and this is right when we see this older guy wearing this robe, and of course this robe has a bunch of alchemy symbols on it, and we'll see this a lot more in a bit, but we'll hold off on that for now. But in front of him you can see pictures of all our characters, so it kind of looks like he was kind of looking for them or tracking them down. Also, he has blueprints of the Titanic right here with a place drawn a circle around, so maybe that's going to be a place of importance or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Also, he has a drawing of the artifact that we will actually see very soon. And finally we see another picture of Scarlet, except it's more of a zoomed up one, and there's a circle around the thing that she has around her neck that we'll see is also important in a little bit. But for now, just note that he has a circle around it and it's something that he finds of interest. And actually, when we see Scarlet actually crack the safe, of course the robe dude goes and ambushes her, takes the stuff from her, takes the artifact and the thing around her neck, and then we can actually see what these things do. And of course he activates them and it kind of blows up into this thing, and then of course people outside of the little orb thing it made started turning into zombies, and with this weird smoke that would go around them, and there was like whispers around this, but I don't know if that's anything that we can decipher yet, but we did hear these little whispers going around and all that good stuff. But it does look like a lot of people that were outside of this orb, or what seems to be a protective orb, were turning into zombies. Now for how this works, or how if it's alchemy or whatever it is, we don't know, but keep in mind not everybody turned into zombies, because some people turn into these weird statue things that I can't make out exactly what they are. Some people are saying it's Zeus or something like that. I find that doubtful. And then the last thing they turn into, or the other thing they turn into I should say, is that they turn into these mystery box, or at least what looks like a mystery box. So we're probably getting the mystery box back, at least judging from what this looks like here. Of course we didn't see any perks unless that statue was a perk machine or anything like that, so we can't say anything else besides a mystery box. Now the reason I talked about the Voyage of Despair's trailer first is because I think it actually really just happened before 9 even happened, and the reason I say this is because you could see what they're wearing inside the trailer of the Voyage of Despair. They're wearing that clothes and all that good stuff, but then if you look at the start of 9's trailer, you can actually see they're wearing that exact same clothes. So what I'm assuming, this isn't of course facts or anything like that, but from what it's at least suggesting here is that they were in this time zone, they finished whatever they were doing in Voyage of Despair, and then of course they went here and did all the 9 stuff. Of course that could be mistaken, there's no way to actually prove that, and there's a ton of other ways to explain it, so we're going to have to just take that with a ton of salt again, because we can't say anything for certain about that, but it does seem likely to me. But when we actually see the trailer for 9, we could actually see our characters sitting in this cave ruins things. It kind of looks like a cave of these ruins, just like some real ancient place or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what it looks like to me. I'm not exactly sure if it has any importance or anything, but it looks like some cave of ancient times or something like that. But of course, when they are sitting inside this place, they're sitting in front of this bowl of liquid. I'm not exactly sure what this liquid is, but the liquid seems to be talking. I guess that's where the voice is coming from, but I could be mistaken. But what I want to do right now, I want to play you guys the voice I was actually playing, because I think it's very important to everything we're going to be discussing here.
You are travelers. You come seeking answers. Hear my Let yourself fall through the ages, through time and space itself, and pray for your safe return.
A couple things to note from that right away, or the couple lines to note from it, is this first one I think is really important, that says, the knowledge you seek was not intended for mortal man. And we could take two really big things from this, and one of those is that we know that our characters are seeking knowledge. We're not exactly sure what that knowledge is, but at least it gives us an idea of why exactly they're doing this. They're doing it for some knowledge that we don't know exactly what it is right now, but we at least know it's for some sort of knowledge. And the other thing, it kind of hints at something that's greater than the mortal man, because it says it was not intended for mortal man. So who is it intended for? Maybe some greater being. I'm not exactly sure. I can't say anything for sure on that one, but it does seem likely that they're suggesting that there's something greater than mortal man. Another line that actually stood out to me right away is that when she said, "Let the vapors transport you through space and time." And of course this is pretty face value, but I just want to point it out because this is actually how our characters are going to be traveling through space and time, because in our previous story, or I guess it's not previous right now because they're probably going to be writing both of them, but in the other Treyarch story they use teleporters and crazy things like that. But this time it seems like we're using some really magical things this time around instead of the sci-fi things at all. So it seems like we're having a big departure from all the sci-fi and we're entering into the magical. But it's actually kind of strange because I rarely see magical things transporting you through space and time, especially using those terms space and time. But I mean, it's not ever happened before, but it's just something you don't see that often. And then the final line I want to talk about is this one right here. It's when she says, "And I pray for your safe return." And the reason why I want to talk about it is because it suggests that our characters are going to be returning to this time when they inhaled all that stuff that transported them through space and time, which may suggest that this is the time they were from. So maybe these characters are actually from the early 1900s or whenever the Titanic happened. I'm not exactly sure actually. When did that happen? Was it the late 1800s? I don't know. Regardless, it's in that time zone, and that may be where our characters are actually from, and now they're just teleporting and transporting, whatever you want to call it, through space and time, just using this weird place. Now, a suggestion that was made to me during the live stream I had the other day, somebody said that this may be kind of like the menu screen that we had, or even like the HQ from World War II, that this is how we get from map to map. We just inhale this, then we go to that map and do all that good stuff, and that'd be a pretty cool idea. But considering it was actually inside a cutscene, for some reason I find it a little doubtful, but it would really be a cool idea. But once they inhale this thing, they are transported to what seems like the Roman times, and we can see our characters seem to be like gladiators or something like that. And of course, a ton of people are in the crowds just wearing this robe that we saw earlier and was hinted at before, of just all this alchemy stuff going on, these masks and everything. It was just a little crazy, everything just going on inside of this. Now, there's not really that much to say after this that I could really explain, because that's all the parts that I think that really are important that stand out, because there's not much to say here, because I can't really tell you too much of what's going on here, besides it looks like this is going to be their version of their gladiator matches that they're having. Instead of just having humans versus humans, they'll turn people into zombies, then after that they are just going to fight against the zombies, and if you survive you win. You know, it's just a normal entertainment. I think it's just their version of gladiators and all that stuff. But one thing to know is that the device they use here to actually turn these people into zombies, it's not the exact same one that we saw inside the other trailer. It's a different one. It has a different look to it entirely. I mean, the general shape of it is the same, but it's not the exact same device. And another thing to note from it is that both of these, when they're activated, they seem to get destroyed. So how do they do this multiple times? Is there a limited amount of times they can do it because there's a limited amount of these? I'm not exactly sure, but it is strange nonetheless, and I do think it's something that we should take into account, because it just seems like it may be very important for the future of this story. But again, besides that, this is again just very face value stuff that we've seen before, or you could tell what's going on just from what you see here. But one thing to note is that we do see this weird looking thing that comes out of this one dude that's chained down, and I just have to say this is pretty much the spider from Zetsubo no Shima. Like, look at the stuff that's coming out of his mouth, look at his hands, look what's on his back. It's the spider from Zetsubo no Shima. And that's not to hate on it, because they're probably using assets from Black Ops 3 right now because it's in pre-alpha, so they're just using these assets right now. And if you guys couldn't tell, all these trailers that we saw for zombies were actually rendered in-game, not an entire cutscene of its own. But that's probably also the reason why it looks so similar, and all the mechanics just look very similar to something we saw inside Black Ops 3, so I thought I should throw that out there right here at the end. But one thing I want to say about 9, of course, the trailer that we just saw, is that I'm thinking that we are probably going to get guns inside this, but I'm not thinking at first. We're probably going to start off with a boss fight, probably the level of the spider from Zetsubo no Shima, and just right away when you start the map. That's what it seems like to me, because a lot of people are saying that this is probably going to be some bonus map where you could just do like silly things, not really anything too serious. You're just going to be running around with, I guess, medieval weapons, or not even medieval weapons. These are ancient weapons from ancient Rome. So I don't know, that's the couple ideas people are throwing around, but we can't say anything for certain. But that's about it for this video. Tell me what you guys think about all of this stuff. Do you guys like what you're seeing with this new storyline, or just do you not like it, or anything like that? Go ahead and tell me all those down in the comments. But if you guys did enjoy the video, go ahead, do all the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, bell, share, and especially bell. But I'm gonna go, and I will catch you guys on my next video.
All that I know is that